This is Nathan Wellman coming to you live from the war-torn ruins known as my home. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but if all you're looking for out of art is a slogan, 1,000 words might be too many. If you want a full dissertation, it might not be enough. The middle ground between these two extremes is where Alex Garland's Civil War finds itself. Its vague staging of a nebulous war pitting Texas and California against the rest of America for some reason has attracted criticisms that it is a politically illiterate work of centrism.
I couldn't have sneered harder at that Texas-California revelation in the film, so clearly planted early on to announce the film's both sides bona fides. Mustn't offend the political hard right by connecting the dots between what's happening right now and what's likely to happen in a dystopian future. Even more maddening is the reference to Lee's career-making photo of the Antifa massacre, without indicating whether members of Antifa were massacred or did the massacring. This strategy seems to be paying off at the box office, which reports robust takings, especially in unexpectedly overperforming red states in the South and Southwest. Which figures, because Garland aligns himself completely with the mainstream view that all forms of disruptive struggle are bad, whether you're fighting for justice or injustice, equality or inequality, democracy or fascism.
Centrism might be a bit strong of a word here. The horrors of this movie are clearly the product of a modern-day liberal's nightmares. The president is in his third term and refuses to leave. Xenophobic violence runs rampant, and every gunshot sounds like a jump scare. But the fact does remain that each faction is fighting for reasons that the audience is not privy to. And so therefore we are not really empowered to make any decision about which party is more in the right and which is more in the wrong. And all this sounds quite familiar to this reporter, who made a whole big video about 4 recent horror projects which blur the entire spectrum of American politics into an amorphous pudding of screams and violence. The ones who survive these projects are the ones who remain neutral, and that neutrality is depicted as normal and healthy by comparison. Civil War is about 4 journalists who are unaffiliated with any specific faction getting sucked into various conflicts in an American Civil War on their way to the White House. And you can see how a premise like that could fit neatly into the patterns established by those earlier horror projects. But while it is true that a good reporter aspires to objectivity, objectivity is not to be confused with neutrality. They bemoan the naivete of their parents who are trying to, quote, pretend none of this is happening, and they gawk with bugged-out eyes at the shop clerk who says her community is trying to, quote, stay out of it. They are consumed by this conflict. It is all they think and talk about. They cannot look away. They cannot allow the world to look away. And the dilemma of when and where to look and what impact that looking does or doesn't have is the central focus of Civil War. The dramatic action of its conflicts concern questions of how not to look away from political violence without losing your mind or life. Should we travel through a war zone to interview a president who shoots journalists on sight? Should we be taking pictures of people who are helpless and about to be executed without saying anything to their defense? Put simply, are journalists observers or participants? The movie seems to lean towards the latter. Their subjects are constantly pulling them out of the sidelines. The camera's viewfinder becomes a weapon and target as much as it is a shield. Jesse's initiation into the world of journalism is a billy club to the face. The gang approaches Pink Shade Militiaman under the assumption that he will respect that they are neutral observers, which he really does not. A man tries to force Jesse into deciding the fate of 2 men he has been torturing, Lee instead offers to take the man's picture, and suddenly the dynamics of power shift. The man's smirking and swaggering slows down to a halting, mumbling obedience. One can see him wondering, who is going to see this picture? What will they think of me? The movie ends with Jessie taking a photo of the president's execution, and her image makes a point to include fellow journalist Joel standing equally alongside the other soldiers. She takes the picture not as the guns go off, but after, as her subjects look up directly at her. The movie ends with Jessie looking at her subjects who look right back. As with all of Alex Garland's directorial efforts, the movie stops short of telling us how to feel about all of this. Lee herself doesn't even seem to know. At one point she says, quote, "We don't ask. We record so other people ask," end quote. But at another moment she says, quote, "Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a message home. Don't do this. But here we are," end quote. Lee's forever frown is heavy with years of professional success never leading to a better world. There's the feeling that this job is costing them some of their humanity. They take pictures of the dead and dying, immortalizing these people in their most grotesque moments. At some point, they take a dangerous detour through the middle of a battlefield for no other reason than to blow off some steam. Jessie takes pictures with such gusto during the final raid on the White House that she seems to dare the bullets to hit her, behavior which costs Lee her life as she pushes Jessie out of harm's way. A deeply ambiguous decision follows as Jessie takes picture after picture after picture of Lee as she is shot and falls to the ground. Why does Jessie take those pictures? This reporter would argue that Jessie herself probably doesn't fully know, and it is within this unknown that Civil War leaves us, ending with the picture of the executed president, which so many people have died for Jessie to take, and letting us decide whether it was worth it. Looking is a political act all on its own. In fact, in just the last few seconds, some of you have probably already clicked away. Even though I am not going to editorialize about Israel or Gaza, I am simply letting these images speak for themselves. But they are speaking. There's nothing neutral about them. You could know absolutely nothing about Israel and Palestine, and I believe these images would still have a powerful impact, especially if you kept looking at things like this day after day. So often, political debate is framed as a battle of ideologies, when oftentimes an issue is instead fought between those who look and those who do not, either because they don't want the resolve to be tested, or it's too disturbing to think about, or, in the case of Gaza, because these images aren't really even shown to people by the places they get their news. The journalists and citizens who recorded what you're seeing have had to upload them on social media websites whose algorithms in turn decide who wants to look at them and who does not. There have always been those who seek to make certain images as difficult to find as possible. Journalists in Gaza are often shot at and killed because some horrors are so self-evident that without a single word of description, they become stories. Speaking on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Israeli author and critic of the Gaza invasion, Yuval Noah Harari, wrote that, quote, "Nations are ultimately built on stories. Each passing day adds more stories that Ukrainians will not only tell in the dark days ahead, but in the decades and generations to come. This is the stuff nations are built from. In the long run, these stories count for more than tanks." Civil war is the search for a picture that no one can look away from. Whatever general anti-war message the film might dabble in, the story that this picture leaves us with is one of revolutionaries triumphing over a fascist. Their beliefs and histories might be unknown, but when they look right at us, we are invited to find something of ourselves in their gaze. Meanwhile, the dead fascist is abstracted into that of a fallen statue. I look at this picture and it's frightening, but it's also the only one in all of Civil War, which brings me some measure of relief, even as it also seems to challenge me about my own place in my own society. Am I an observer or a participant? Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my second channel, Nathan Now, where I upload a lot more frequently about everything from Twin Peaks to Dune to Knock at the Cabin Door to When Evil Lurks. And as always, supporting my work on Patreon is deeply appreciated. I'll put some links in the video description for places to help out Gaza as well if you'd like to do that. See you next time.